direct financing lease on the part of the lessor. Before we start, let's have first the objective of this topic, Chapter 13. First is to know the finance lease classification on the part of the lessor. Second is to define what direct financing lease is. Third, to distinguish a direct financing lease from a sales type lease. Also to understand the gross investment and net investment in the direct financing lease. Lastly, is to recognize interest income in a direct financing lease using the effective interest method. On the part of the lessor, there are two types of finance lease. First is the direct financing lease wherein the lease recognizes only the interest income. And the second one is the sales type lease na kung saan yung interest income at gross profit on sale naman ang nire-recognize natin. Note that the main distinction between these two is the presence or absence of a manufacturer or dealer profit or loss. Pero sa chapter na ito, nakapokus lang tayo sa direct financing lease. So first, let's define what direct financing lease is. In direct financing lease, the lessor is actually engaged in the financing business. It is also an arrangement between the financing entity and the lessee. Also note that in direct financing lease, the income of the lessor is only in the form of interest income. And there's no dealer profit recognized because the fair value and the cost of the asset are equal. Now that we already defined what direct financing lease is, let's proceed now on the four consideration of accounting or the guide on how we compute direct financing lease. First is the gross investment in the lease. It is equal to the gross rental or annual rental times the entire lease term plus the absolute amount of the residual value and will be added whether guaranteed or unguaranteed. It is depend if the lessee will guarantee the property at the end of the lease term. Also note that residual value is only considered if there is no transfer of ownership and bargain purchase option. The second one is net investment in the lease. Note that in net investment, we need to know first if you are a dealer or a direct finance lease. Because in direct finance lease, it is the equal to the cost of asset plus any initial direct cost paid by the lessor. Always remember na it is always paid by the lessor. Dahil kung paid by the lessee siya, walang pakialam si lessor dito. The third one is unearned interest income. It is the difference between the gross investment and net investment in the lease. So, kailangan, dapat tama yung result natin sa gross investment and net investment para mag-come up tayo sa tamang result ng unearned interest income. Lastly, is the initial direct cost. It is paid by the lessor and added to the cost of the asset to get the net investment in a direct financing lease. Also, it would effectively spread the initial direct cost over the net investment over the lease term and reduce the amount of the interest income. So, here's the guide on how we compute the gross investment in the lease. According to what we have said earlier, it is gross rental or annual rental times the lease term, then we will add the residual value to get the gross rental. Let's try to compute gross rental in this illustration. On January 1, 2021, SVT Company leased a machinery to another entity with the following details. Cost of machinery, 1,518,650. Lease term is 4 years life of machinery is also 4 years, implicit interest rate is 12%, and the present value of annuity of 1 for 4 years at 12% is 3.0373. First, let's compute the annual rental payable at the end of each year for us to be able to get the gross rental. So for us to be able to compute the annual rental payable at the end of each year, we will divide the cost of machinery or the present value of the gross rental with the amount of 1,518,650 to the present value of annuity of 1 for 4 years at 12% or 3.0373. We will come up to 500,000 annual rental payable at the end of each year. And now, for us to get the gross rental or lease receivable, we will multiply the annual rental payable at the end of each year, which is 500,000, to the lease term, which is 4 years. And the answer is 2 million. And for us to be able to record it in journal entry, we also need to compute the unearned interest income. Dahil mayroon na tayong gross rental, kailangan naman natin siyang i-deduct sa present value of gross rental, which is yung 1,518,650. And the answer is 481,350, which is our unearned interest income. Our journal entry for this illustration is first, we will debit lease receivable with the amount of 2 million and credit the machinery in the amount of 1,518,650 and unearned interest income, which is 481,350. And to record the annual collection or the rental, is simply debit cash 500,000 and credit lease receivable 500,000 also. Now, let's have the table of amortization. If we remember on the last slide, our unearned interest income is 481,350, right? Now, that amount will be recognized over the lease term following the effective interest method. As we can see, on the table below, the payment represents the annual rental, while the interest is equal to the preceding present value times the interest rate. So in 2021, we have the present value with the amount of 1,518,650 times the 12% of the interest rate, and we will get 182,238 as our interest for December 31, 2021. While in principal, it is the proportion of the rental payment after we deduct the interest. So based on the table on the year 2021, the payment here is 500,000 minus the 182,000 that we get on the interest for 2021, and we will get 317,762 for our principal in the year 2021. And for the present value, it is the balance of the present value after deducting the principal payment. So in the year 2021, our present value is 1,518,650 minus the principal of the year 2021 with the amount of 317,762, and it is equal to 1,200,888. And that's our new present value at the end of the year 2021. Same procedure in the next following years. Now, let's proceed in the recognition of the interest income. According to the book, the effective method is used in recognizing the interest income. And in the IFRS 16, page 75, states that the lessor shall recognize finance income over the lease term or the lease receivable under finance lease equal to the net investment in the lease. Anong ibig sabihin nito? Sinasabi lang dito na kung magkano yung net investment na na-compute natin under direct finance lease, it is the initial measurement of the lease receivable. The journal entry in December 31, 2021, we debit and earn interest income and credit interest income with the amount of 182,238. While in December 31, 2022, we debit and earn interest income 144,107 and credit interest income with the same amount 144,107. And for December 31, 2023, we will debit and earn interest income with the amount of 101,399 and credit interest income with the amount of 101,399 also. And for the last year, which is on December 31, 2024, we debit the unearned interest income 53,606 and also credit interest income with the same amount of interest. Now that we already understand what gross investment is, we will proceed to the net investment of direct financing lease. So here's the guide on how we compute the net investment in the lease. Again, to be able to get net investment, it is equal to the cost of asset plus the initial direct cost paid by the lessor. Let's try to compute net investment in this illustration. On January 1, 2021, SVT Company leased a machinery to another entity with the following details. Cost of machinery, 1,518,650. Annual rental payable at the end of each year is 500,000. Lease term is 4 years. Useful life of machinery is also 4 years. Implicit interest rate is 12%. And the present value of annuity of 1 for 4 years at 12% is 3.0373. On January 1, 2021, SVT Company paid an initial direct cost of 66,300 pesos. According to the formula at the last slide, it says there that in order to get the net investment, we must add the cost of the asset or the cost of machinery, which is 1,518,650 to the initial direct cost paid by the lessor, which is 66,300 pesos, and it is equal to 1,584,950. The inclusion of the initial direct cost in the net investment in lease will have the effect of spreading the initial direct cost over the lease term and reduce the interest income from the finance lease. At dahil nakuha na natin yung net investment in the lease, kailangan din natin kunin yung bagong unearned interest income niya. Paano? By deducting the gross rental, which is 2 million, to the net investment in the lease, which is 1,584,950. And the answer is 415,050 pesos. Note that the initial direct cost will decrease implicit rate in the lease. But the problem here is, we must determine the reduced implicit rate. And we all know that the original implicit rate is 12%. But it cannot be applied. Bakit? It's because of the added initial direct cost. Dito papasok yung trial and error or tinatawag nating interpolation process for us to be able to find the new implicit rate. Paano nga ba natin siya sisimulan? Or paano nga ba natin siya gagawin? First, we must try the new interest rate lower than the original implicit rate, which is the 12%. Meaning, applicable siya sa 11% pababa. So, kailangan natin munang i-determine yung present value of gross rental that would equate the net investment in the lease of 1,584,950 using those rates. For example, let's try first the 11%. Using the 11%, the present value of an ordinary of 1 at 11% for a 4 period is 3.1024. So, nakuha yung 3.1024 through the use of this formula. For us to be able to know if this is right, we will multiply the present value of gross rental, which is 500,000, in 3.1024, and it is equal to 1,551,200. So, this amount is not the same in the net investment list. So, the 11% implicit rate is not the new interest rate. Try naman natin siya sa 10%. Using the 10% of present value of an ordinary annuity of 1 at 10% for 4 period is 3.1699. Same procedure. Makukuha natin si 3.1699 sa formula na ito. And again, for us to be able to know if the 10% is right, we will multiply the gross rental, which is the 500,000, to 3.1699. And it is equal to 1,584,950. And coincidentally, this amount is the same as the net investment list. So, in conclusion to this, our new implicit rate is 10%, and it is used to determine the annual interest income. So, to record the payment of initial direct costs, we need to debit machinery at initial direct cost of 66,300 and credit cash 66,300 pesos. And to record the direct financing lease for 2021, we will debit the lease receivable for 2 million and we credit the machinery for 1,584,950 and credit the unearned interest income for 415,050 pesos. And to record the collection of annual rental for 2021, we debit cash for 500,000 and credit to lease receivable for 500,000 also. The unearned interest income of 415,050 pesos is recognized as income over the lease term following the effective interest method of amortization. We can see that the payment represents the annual rental. Interest is equal to the preceding present value times the interest rate. So, for 2021, the 1,584,950 times 10% is equal to 158,945 pesos. And for the principal, it is equal to the portion of the rental payment after deducting the interest. So, for 2022, 500,000 minus 158,495 is equal to 341,505 pesos. And for the present value, it is the balance of the preceding value after deducting the principal payment. So, on December 31, 2021, we will deduct 341,505 pesos to 1,584,950 to get the 1,243,445. And to record the interest income for 2021, we need to debit an earned interest income for 158,495 and credit the interest income for the same amount. And to record the interest income for the year 2022, we need to debit the unearned interest income of 124,344 and credit interest income of the same amount. If a statement of financial position is prepared by the lessor on December 31, 2021, we will record the lease receivable as partly current and partly non-current. Always remember that the current portion is only the residual amount. So how do we get that? First, we need to compute the non-current portion. And the non-current portion is actually equal to the carrying amount of the following year, and that's equal to 867,789. Remember that when the non-trade liability is beyond 1 year, it is considered as non-current. And if by the end of 2022, you still have a receivable of 867,789, assuming that you will be able to collect it starting January 1, 2023. And that's already beyond 1 year and considered as non-current. Then apparently, the current portion will equal to 375,656. Now let's proceed to the illustration number 3. On January 1, 2021, SVT Company leased a machinery to another entity with the following details. Cost of machinery, 3,194,410. Residual value with 500,000. Useful life and lease term with 4 years. Implicit interest rate, 10%. Present value of 1 at 10% for 4 period is 0.6830. And present value of an ordinary annuity of 1 at 10% for 4 period is 3.1699. Note that the machinery shall revert to the lessor at the end of the lease term because there is neither a transfer or title nor a purchase option. Remember, kapag walang nangyaring transfer of title or purchase option, ay babalik ang machinery sa lessor at the end of the lease term. In this illustration, we need to determine the annual rental as the annual rental is payable at the end of each year, starting with the first payment on December 31, 2021.
To compute the annual rental, you need to less the present value of the residual value to the cost of machinery. The present value of the residual value is computed by multiplying the residual value by the present value of 1 at 10% for 4 periods. So 500,000 multiplied by 0.6830 is equals to 341,500. After you get the present value of residual value, you will now less it to the cost of machinery. So 3,194,410 pesos less 341,500 pesos equals to 2,852,910 pesos, which will be the net investment to be recovered from rental and will be divided to the present value of an ordinary annuity of 1 at 10% for 4 periods of 3.1699. It will result to the annual rental of 900,000. In terms, when the machinery is not reverted to the lessor at the end of the lease term, the residual value is ignored. So the residual value of 500,000 will not be multiplied to the present value of 1 at 10% for 4 periods, which is 0.6830. Interest is equal to the preceding present value multiplied to the interest rate. Thus, for 2021, the 3,194,910 pesos multiplied by 10% is equals to 319,441 pesos. Principal is computed through deducting the interest to the payment of rental. Thus, for 2021, 900,000 pesos minus the 319,441 pesos is equals to 580,559 pesos. Present value equals to the balance of the present value minus the principal payment. Thus, on December 31, 2021, the 3,194,410 minus 580,599 is equals to 2,613,851 pesos. To record the direct financing lease for 2021, we will debit the lease receivable for 4,100,000 pesos and we credit the machinery for 3,194,410 pesos and credit the unearned interest income for 905,590 pesos. And to record the collection of annual rental for 2021, we debit cash for 900,000 pesos and credit to lease receivable for the same amount. And to record the interest income for 2021, debit unearned interest income for 319,441 pesos and credit interest income for 319,441 also. When the lease expires on December 31, 2024, the machinery will revert to the lessor. Whether guaranteed or unguaranteed, the entry will be the same in the books of the lessor. Debit machinery for 500,000 pesos and credit lease receivable for 500,000 pesos also. There will be an accounting problem when the fair value of the machinery is lower than the residual value. For example, the fair value of the machinery is 400,000 pesos and the residual value is 500,000 pesos. Under the guaranteed scenario, the lessee shall pay for the difference to the lessor. So debit cash for 100,000 pesos and also debit machinery for 400,000 pesos and credit lease receivable for 500,000 pesos. Under the unguaranteed scenario, the lessor shall recognize a loss on finance lease for the difference. Debit loss on finance lease 100,000 pesos. Debit also on machinery 400,000 pesos and credit lease receivable for 500,000 pesos. On January 1st, 2021, SBT Company leased a machinery to another entity with the following details. Cost of machinery amounting to 3,760,100 pesos. Residual value guarantee 400,000 pesos. Useful life and lease term 4 years. Implicit interest rate of 10%. Present value of 1 at 10% for 4 periods is equals to 0.6830. And present value of an ordinary annuity of 1 at 10% for 4 periods is equals to 3.4869. Note that the annual rental is payable in advance on January 1 of each year starting January 1st, 2021. Since the residual value is guaranteed, the machinery shall revert to the lessor at the end of the lease term. To compute the annual rental, we need to less the present value of residual value to the cost of machinery. So to compute the present value of residual value, 400,000 times 0.6830 is equals to 273,200. So we need to less this 273,200 to 3,760,100 cost of machinery. We will get 3,486,900 pesos, which is the net investment to be recovered from rental. We need to multiply it to 3.4869 to get the annual rental of 1 million pesos. Note that the rental is payable in advance at the beginning of each year. Thus, the annuity of 1 in advance factor is used in the computation. To compute the unearned interest income, we need to add the residual value guaranteed 400,000 to the gross rentals of 4 million is equals to 4,400,000 pesos. Then we need to less the net investment or the cost of machinery 3,760,100 pesos and we will get the unearned interest income of 639,900 pesos. Interest is equal to the preceding present value times the interest rate. Note that the first rental payment on January 1st, 2021 pertains to the principal only. Thus on January 1st, 2022, the interest is equal to 2,760,100 pesos times the 10% or equal to 276,010 pesos. This interest income pertains to 2021. Principal is the portion of the rental payment minus the interest. Thus, on January 1st, 2022, 1 million pesos minus the 276,010 pesos is equals to 273,990 pesos. Present value is the balance of the present value minus the principal payment. Thus, on January 1st, 2022, 2,760,100 pesos minus the 723,990 is equals to 2,036,110 pesos. To record the direct financing lease for 2021, we will debit the lease receivable for 4,400,000 pesos and we credit the machinery for 3,760,100 pesos and credit the unearned interest income for 639,900 pesos. And to record the collection of annual rental for 2021, we debit cash for 1 million pesos and credit the lease receivable for the same amount. And to record the interest income for 2021, debit unearned interest income for 276,010 pesos and credit interest income for 276,010 pesos also. And to record the collection of annual rental for 2022, we debit cash for 1 million pesos and credit to lease receivable for 1 million pesos also. And to record the interest income for 2022, we debit unearned interest income for 203,611 pesos and credit interest income for the same amount. And to record the collection of annual rental for 2023, we debit cash for 1 million pesos and credit lease receivable for 1 million also. And to credit interest income for 2023, we debit unearned interest income for 123,972 pesos and credit interest income for 123,972 also. And to record the collection of annual rental for 2024, we debit cash for 1 million pesos and credit to lease receivable for 1 million pesos also. And to record the interest income for 2024, debit unearned interest income for 36,307 pesos and credit interest income for the same amount. And given that by the year 2025, the fair value of the machinery is 300,000 pesos only. Since the guaranteed residual value is 400,000 pesos, the lessee shall pay for the difference of the 100,000 pesos to the lessor. So to record, we need to debit cash for 100,000 pesos and debit machinery for 300,000 pesos and credit the lease receivable for 400,000 pesos. On January 1st, 2021, SBT Company leased a machinery to another entity with the following details. Cost of machinery amounting to 3,449,600 pesos, residual value guarantee amounting to 500,000 pesos, and useful life and lease term of 5 years, implicit interest rate of 8%, present value of annuity of 1 in advance at 8% for 5 periods, 4.312. Note that the annual rental is payable in advance on January 1 of each year starting January 1st, 2021. The lease provided for a transfer of title to the lessee at the end of the lease term. To compute the annual rental, we need to divide the cost of machinery of 3,449,600 pesos to 4.312 and we will get the annual rental of 800,000 pesos. We can see that the residual value is completely ignored in the computation of the annual rental and the unearned interest income, as the machinery will not revert to the lessor at the end of the lease term because the lease provides for a transfer of title to the lessee. Also note that the annual rental is payable in advance. Hence, the annuity of 1 in advance or annuity due factor is used in the computation. In order to compute the unearned interest income, we need to less the net investment of 3,449,600 pesos to the gross rental of 4 million. We will get the unearned interest income of 550,400 pesos. interest is equal to the preceding present value times the interest rate. The first rental payment on January 1, 2021 pertains to principal only. Hence, on January 1st, 2022, the interest is equal to 2,649,600 pesos times 8% or equal to 211,968 pesos. This interest pertains to 2021. Principal is the portion of the rental payment minus the interest. Thus, on January 1, 2022, 800,000 pesos is less. Principal is the portion of the rental payment minus the interest. Thus, on January 1, 2022, 800,000 pesos minus 211,968 pesos is equals to 588,032 pesos. Present value is the balance of the present value minus the principal payment. Hence, on January 1st, 2022, 2,649,600 pesos minus the 588,032 pesos is equals to 2,061,568 pesos. To record the direct financing lease for 2021, we will debit the lease receivable for 4 million pesos and we credit the machinery for 3,449,600 pesos and credit the unearned interest income for 550,400 pesos. And to record the collection of annual rental for 2021, we debit cash for 800,000 pesos and credit to the lease receivable for the same amount. And to record the interest income for 2021, debit unearned interest income for 211,968 pesos and credit interest income for 211,968 pesos also. And to record the collection of annual rental for 2022, we debit cash for 800,000 pesos and credit to lease receivable for 800,000 pesos also. And to record the interest income for 2022, debit unearned interest income for 164,925 pesos and credit interest income for the same amount. And for the preceding year, the same procedure is applied. That's all for the chapter 13, the direct financing lease on the part of the lessor. Hope you learned something. Thank you for listening. Have a good day and may God bless us all.